Smash Fever. Ever since the first game in 1999, Super Smash Bros. Has become a flagship series for Nintendo. Super Smash Bros. Brawl in particular, at the making of this video, is the best-selling fighting game of all time. Part of Super Smash Bros. Success comes from the fact that it's a love letter to Nintendo fans everywhere. There are playable fighters from just about every single Nintendo franchise I can think of. Of course, some characters are better incorporated into the fighting game than others, and some really shouldn't be there at all. 2 rules before we begin. First, characters that share a slot are segregated. Second, like WatchMojo.com's list of the best Smash Bros. Characters, effectiveness is not going to be the only factor that determines a character's placing on these lists. Unlike that list, however, I am not going to betray that philosophy by making Meta Knight number 1 just because he's so effective. You could argue about movesets forever, so I want to include things that are more tangible and less subjective. I'll explain my reasoning for each character as I go, and hopefully you'll be able to follow. Number 5. Best. Yes, it wouldn't be Super Smash Bros. Without Mario. Then again, it wouldn't be without Luigi. Luigi had a rough start in the first Super Smash Bros. Game. He was a clone to his older brother Mario. Some may say that clone is too harsh and that semi-clone is more appropriate, but I believe that there is a spectrum of how much of a clone one character is to another. At 0%, the 2 characters have nothing in common, like Squirtle and Snake. At 10%, the 2 characters share one similarity, such as how Sonic and Zero Suit Samus share the same down air attack. At 100%, the characters are exactly the same except in look, such as Olimar and Alph. If someone were to tell you that 2 characters are clones and their similarity was 0 to 29%, you would think that person is stupid. 30 to 59%, you could see where they're going with it. 60 to 99%, you would agree with them, and 100% you would think they're stupid for pointing out the obvious. In the original Super Smash Bros., Luigi is 60% Mario at the very least. In Melee, they updated his moveset to differentiate it from Mario, and with Brawl and the introduction of Final Smashes and Mario's Flood, Luigi has become the least cloney of the clones, if that makes sense. I love how through using his up special, if you catch an opponent off guard, you can send them straight to the moon. Who needs NASA when we have Luigi? Toss in his green missile and his tornado move, which allows him to move around the ground at an extreme speed, and Luigi has a plethora of amazing moves. And that's just his specials. He also has the best taunt in any of the games. No, not this one. This one. This taunt has potential for hilarious snapshots. He was also a vital character in the Subspace Emissary, where he was a member of the rescue team that saved the downed fighters, including his older brother Mario. Good job, Luigi. It was truly a mistake to call you the eternal understudy. Number 5. Worst. This character was set as the video thumbnail in order to grab your attention. We all know Pichu sucks. Whenever Pichu does an electrical attack, which is about half of its moveset mind you, it damages itself a little bit. That would not be a big deal, but Pichu is light. Very light. And its main enemy becomes itself. Toss in the fact that it's 80% Pikachu, and you have the laughingstock of the Smash Bros. Series. Now, I'm going to admit that I actually like Pichu. He has a few redeeming qualities. His Skull Bash when fully charged is extremely powerful, he moves very quickly, and most of all, if you beat someone with him, you can talk about it for weeks on end. I once saw a video where a person beat very hard on Classic Mode as Pichu without losing a single life. That man has my respect. But in the end, opinions must cede to facts, and just because I enjoy eating chocolate cake doesn't mean it's good for me. Fun fact, in some groups, Kirby is considered worse in Melee than Pichu. I don't understand the entirety of the logistics, but I do know that Kirby's throws can be interrupted throughout the entire throw. What a joke. I too believe that there are tougher things to chew than Pichu, however, Kirby is not one of them. Number 4. Best. Masahiro Sakurai has said that although he's received thousands of suggestions for characters that should be in Super Smash Bros., almost nobody recommended the Wii Fit Trainer. Therefore, it was a perfect addition. I'm not even joking. The shock that this character is even in this game is part of what makes her so great. Another part is her unorthodox fighting style. While other characters use swords, fire, laser beam guns, and magic, Wii Fit Trainer likes using yoga. She even seems blissfully unaware that she's even in a fight, as she gives workout tips to other fighters as she performs. I'd play some of these tips for you, but I'm afraid Zodiac Active might claim it owns the rights to Super Smash Bros. Again. There's also a male version of the Wii Fit Trainer, but I prefer the female version because, and this might sound a little crazy and weird, I like to hear her scream. When she's hit hard at a high percentage, she lets out a shriek that actually sounds like she's being launched across the length of the stage. compared to the sounds the other characters make when they're launched, well, there's no comparison. Number 4. Worst. There's no proper way to introduce this character. It's Pac-Man. The only problem I have with Pac-Man is that his moveset is insipid. All of his smash attacks are him just placing ghosts, and half of his moves involve him transforming into his primitive form. His standard special using all of the optional collectibles in Pac-Man is pretty cool, but he doesn't really use any moves that he actually uses in his games. The fire hydrant is from Pac-Land, but you don't use it, it's an obstacle. Here's the part where you say, but Gaming Top 10, Super Smash Bros. Isn't all about accuracy. Remember that one game where McCloud went Mozilla on everybody? First, Fox has been on foot in a variety of Star Fox games, including Star Fox 64's multiplayer, which came out before Super Smash Bros. Second, this is a rev roll, this is a butt bounce, and this is a kickflip. All of these moves are from Pac-Man World 2. I recommend it if you haven't tried it yet. These could be his side special, his down special, and his up air attacks, respectively. If you consider how power pellets are used to operate his side special and his final smash, Pac-Man feels like he was shoved in at the last second just because, oh, third-party Namco representative. Number 3. Best. Donkey Kong and I have had an on-off relationship throughout Super Smash Bros. When I first played the original, he was my main. In Melee, his kooky character portrait was such a deterrent that at one point he was my least played character. I initially ignored him when Brawl came around, but in 2011 I started playing Smash 64 again and played a lot of Donkey Kong for old time's sake. I remembered why I liked him so much, and now I use him all the time whenever I play any of the Smash Bros. Games. I'm going to say this right here, right now. Screw the Falcon Punch, it's all about the Donkey Punch. In Smash 4, they've nerfed it so Donkey Kong has to rotate his arms roughly 13 rotations before he can use it. But it's still as powerful as ever, so just be sure not to miss. His final smash might seem terrible to unsuspecting players, but if you press the attack button in time with Donkey Kong's beating of the bongos and the rhythm, it releases powerful sound waves that get stronger with each strike. Force your opponent near the end of the stage, unleash your final smash, and he's done for. In Smash 4, there's visual cues to help, but it seems the attacks are weaker to compensate. I don't like the trade-off. He also can carry his opponents, which not only leads to hilarious suicide runs, but also helps him position himself as he throws his opponents into hazards. Not only that, he's the only character that can jump while lifting heavy objects. You might think all of this power would lead to a slow character, but nope, Donkey Kong is all muscle. Overall, Donkey Kong is a fighter powerful enough to be intimidating, but not powerful enough to be ridiculous. Just make sure you know what you're doing every step of the way and nothing can stand in your way. Number 3. Worst. At the end of Pac-Man's announcement trailer, Mr. Game & Watch was all but confirmed. Unbeknownst to the public at the time, Dark Pit appearing at the end of Palutena's announcement trailer was Sakurai's way of saying that he's in the game too. When I heard Dark Pit was a playable fighter in Smash 4, I refused to believe it until the second he approached me as a challenger. I hate doppelgangers. Just saying Dark Pit makes me cringe. Plus, if he were in Smash 4, he'd pretty much have the same moveset as Pit, right? Well, he didn't disappoint in disappointing me. The game doesn't even try to hide this. If you scan Pitu while at Palutena's temple as Pit, Palutena will say that your powers are perfectly matched. In the end, that's not actually true. Pitu is a stronger, slower version of Pit, and he has a different side special which attacks at a different angle, and a different final smash, which is just a copy of Zelda and Sheik's final smash. This is like 3 Landmasters all over again. Actually, scratch that, the Landmasters had different stats. Zelda's Light Arrow and Pitu's Dark Pit Staff do the exact same damage. I know Sakurai has said that Pitu's inclusion is because it took no time to add him, and while that may explain his presence, it doesn't excuse it. If he has every right to be a unique character, I have every right to judge him as a unique character. Alf isn't going to appear on this list, neither is Iggy. At least Sakurai didn't inflate the character count by saying they were their own characters. If Pitu contrasts Pit enough that he deserves his own character slot, at least back that statement. Number 2. Best. When I was younger, I once had a dream that Wario was a playable character in Smash 64. He acted like a Juggernaut version of Mario, slower but stronger. Then came the WarioWare games, and with the Super Smash Bros. Brawl trailer, I knew we were in for something much greater than a Mario clone. It only takes one match with Wario to realize he's unorthodox incarnate. He attacks people by chomping on them, riding on his motorcycle, farting, and clapping his hands, to name a few. Brawl in particular was an extreme case because even his movement animation was weird. It was as though the animators left out frames every now and then. Wario has quite the air game, and by linking his motorcycle hop to WarioWAF to Corkscrew, he also has quite the recovery. Wario's final smash also brings great trepidation, alongside his upgraded motorcycle, which, in the hands of an expert, can bring great devastation with no harm to himself. But what keeps me coming back to playing Wario is his victory screen, where he literally rolls on the floor laughing, as if the thought of his opponents being a challenge just cracks him up. You're awesome, Wario. Never change for anyone. Number 2. Worst. If this list were made around 2012, Marth would be among the worst, no doubt. Marth is effective. Really effective. His sword has disjointed hitboxes, meaning it can hurt you, but you can't hurt it. He also is smart enough to use his sword in conjunction with other battering items he picks up. The thing is, the games that he was in were only released in Japan up until 2008 with the release of Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon. Essentially, these two factors meant that if someone were to play Marth, they didn't care about investing into a character they knew and loved, they cared about winning only. You know how Uncle Frank roots for the nearest football team even though half or more of its members aren't from anywhere near the city the team is named after? Yeah, he mains Marth. The worldwide release of Shadow Dragon does ease the sting though, and you know what's worse than a tryhard? A clone of a tryhard. Whereas Pitou has almost all the same moves as Pit, Lucina has all of the moves of Marth, all the way down to the final smash. The only blatant difference between the two is that Lucina's sword does the exact same damage no matter where it hits, and Marth's sword does more damage if it hits with the end. But why isn't Roy on this list? 1. He had a different standard special, whereas Lucina's is for all intents and purposes the same as Marth's. 2. He looks unique, whereas Lucina looks like a girl Marth. 3. There was already a representative from Fire Emblem Awakening named Robin. And 4, this comes after Brawl, where it felt like they were finally deciding to diversify the clones that they were going to keep. That last one is small, but it still stings a little. I don't necessarily like or dislike these honorable mentions, but there are some things I should point out about them. Anyone who has played Zero Mission knows that Zero Suit Samus is nothing like she is in Super Smash Bros. Okay, she's athletic and she has a stun gun, but I meant in terms of combat. In the Zero Suit section of the game, about 80% of it is running away from the space pirates. She's extremely fragile and she doesn't have a plasma whip or jet boost. Another gripe that I have is that all of the characters in Super Smash Bros. 4 have their current voice actors except for Zero Suit Samus. You mean to tell me that they'll bring back Mike West, who only played Fox 2 times in 17 years, but they won't bring back Jessica Martin? Granted, if there's a franchise that deserves a second representative, it's Metroid, and the Zero Suit seems to be the only recurring thing that can fit this bill. I do enjoy playing as her, and when I first saw her new Final Smash, my mind was completely blown. Remember the E3 tournament where everyone went insane when they saw Mega Man's Final Smash? That was pretty much me earlier when they showed Zero Suit Samus's. Speaking of Mega Man, they incorporated him into Smash Bros. Perfectly. His Final Smash combining the power of the 5 Mega Mans is absolutely brilliant. His moveset is pretty much what one would expect if he or she were told Mega Man was going to be in a Smash game. Metal Blade, Rush Coil, sliding, shooting forward. Even his custom moves are from more and more Mega Man games. I don't enjoy playing as Mega Man much. His moveset has a distinct flavor that I'm not used to yet. However, this is how you treat a third party's intellectual property with respect. I mean seriously, Pac-Man World 3 limits Pac-Man's butt bounces to 3 at a time and the final one does a shockwave-based attack. How hard is this? Number 1. Best. The best Super Smash Bros. Character has appeared in Smash 4. The character is a female, and the series in which she appears is named after her. Zelda is perhaps the only Smash character whose appearance was unlikely, yet her moveset is anything but weird. She isn't seen for very long in her games, but she's also hinted to be very proficient at magic, archery, and even possibly sword fighting. It doesn't take a great leap of faith to believe that Zelda visited the same great fairies Link did, and as a result has those spells. While it might be easier to make an appropriate moveset for Link as opposed to Fox, Zelda seems to strike the perfect balance between appropriateness and feasibility. For example, her magical ability allows her to focus Din's fire at a distance, which is great for sniping Smash Balls or hitting 2 opponents that are too busy attacking each other to notice the giant fireball hurtling towards them. My favorite moves of hers are the lightning kicks, which do 4 damage normally, but if you time it just right, it does a whopping 20%. The fact that sweet spot based moves are practically guaranteed to land correctly on the final boss of Smash 4 makes Zelda a great starter character with which to play 9.0. I especially like how in Brawl, if she lands the attack perfectly, the entire game stops for a split second. Would you like to hear about a real-life scenario where the entire world seems to stop before you release a large amount of energy? Yes, her final smash is almost the same as Sheik's, but I feel that's more of Sheik's fault because Zelda actually uses light arrows in her games. Zelda isn't perfect. There isn't a reason why she shouldn't be able to outrun Peach, but she's still very enjoyable to play. She's implemented into the Smash series beautifully, her moveset revolves around precision, and to top it all off, she has a taunt where she waves her opponents goodbye as they fly off the screen. That is a lot more than what I can say about the worst character. Number 1. Worst. For the most part, you can see a pattern with the worst characters. I think clones are lazy and a waste of everyone's time. Well, when Smash 4 already had enough Mario representatives as it was, one clone decided to rear its ugly head once more. Dr. Mario reaches a new level of clone in the sense that he's not even his own character. He's Mario in a doctor's uniform. At least Sheik and Zero Suit Samus have their own moves. Dr. Mario is 80% Mario and 10% Luigi because of the Tornado move. Even his final smash is underwhelming. Young Link might have been more of a Link clone than Toon Link, but at least he didn't come back. I know programming Patu, Lucina, and Dr. Mario almost took no effort, but I would trade all three of them for Lucas or Wolf in a heartbeat, because at least they had effort put into them. By justifying the inclusion of these characters just because they're resource effective, Sakurai is saying it's okay to be lazy when it comes to extra content, which is kind of ironic because the Smash Bros. Series is chock full of content that has a lot of effort put behind it. This year for April Fool's Day, I'm being double subversive. Normally I do a list that's not related to video games, but this time, to be unexpected, I am doing something that is related to video games. So yes, to the surprise of absolutely nobody, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is my favorite iteration in the franchise thus far. But that doesn't mean there aren't any changes that I wish did not happen. And so, as you can imagine having clicked on this video, I'm going to be counting down the top 5 best and worst changes coming into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Keep in mind that this is my own personal opinion, though I will try to argue the reasons why it is my personal opinion. If you don't like it, feel free to create your own list of the top 5 best and worst changes. Skipping the intro, and just like a fully charged Smash attack, let's jump right into it. One of the best parts about Super Smash Bros. That has helped with its longevity is that it's so dang customizable. However, until Ultimate, this meant that you had to change the rules manually every time you wanted to do something different. Now with Ultimate, you can create rule sets, add labels to help remember them, and then use them interchangeably. Some that I've made include Pokeballs only on high on Pokemon only stages, and Final Destination no item stamina battle a la Street Fighter. For the number 5 worst change, we have to talk about voice acting. This is Takashi Nagasako, voice actor extraordinaire. He has voiced many different roles, however we're interested in only 2 today. First of all, he's the current voice of Donkey Kong, but you wouldn't know that because Sakurai and crew have elected to use ape noises again. Now why would this count as a change if they've been doing it all along? Well, you see, with Ultimate, they actually called Takashi back into the studio to voice his other character, Ocarina of Time Ganondorf. It had been about 20 years since Takashi recorded for Ganondorf, and let's just say that it shows. Now, I am generally of the opinion that bad voice acting is the fault of the director, not the actor himself. Just look at Fox between Smash 4 and Smash Ultimate. Can you believe they're the same person? So basically, the voice director called in Takashi, ignored the potential for any Donkey Kong lines, heard Takashi voice Ganondorf as if he were a 75-year-old man and said, "This is okay, I want this in my game," and ignored any potential of having the original Melee lines within Ultimate, which were completely fine. All of these combined make the voice director's handling of Takashi Nagasako the 5th worst change coming into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. With each new Smash iteration, one step that Sakurai and crew enjoy doing is making sure that they diversify clones further. With Everyone Is Here, I was worried they weren't even going to bother changing some of the characters. Fortunately, I was completely incorrect. Looping back to Ganondorf, he uses his sword in smash attacks, helping diversify him from Captain Falcon and cementing his place as the King of Evil. They have made Pichu more in line with a baby rattlesnake, being unable to control how much venom it releases in harming its opponent. With Dr. Mario, they've changed his throws, his down air attack, and I'm pretty sure they've made his recovery worse, differentiating him from Mario. Congratulations, Dr. Mario, you are no longer the worst Smash character. No, that title now belongs to Daisy, and what a transition this is. The fourth worst new aspect of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is the inclusion of certain Echo Fighters. Okay, so it seems weird to me that they would put in a lot of effort into making Chrom different from Roy, and Ken different from Ryu, but they decided to make Daisy and Peach the exact same character. Actually, no, wait, it turns out 3 months after the release of the game, people have finally found a difference. Their turnips have slightly different knockback. Simon and Richter are also almost exactly the same, with the down special not doing fire-based damage for Richter. Wow, and here I was thinking Lucina and Dark Pit were scraping the bottom. Now, it's cool that they use Echo Fighters as a label to help differentiate these characters as extra content. However, if they aren't different quite like Ken is, then they really should just be alternate costumes. The third best change is the inclusion of different and unique classic modes for each fighter. Generally, they follow a certain theme or gimmick. Isabelle faces off against every single female fighter, Roy faces off against every single sword fighter, Shulk fights different characters that represent the different stances of the Monado, and Sonic has a really interesting one. He faces off different characters that are supposed to represent his games. For example, he'll fight a giant Incineroar as a substitute for Zarbok. I think that's pretty creative. Some of them tend to be a little too similar. Link and Falco both involve fighting dark and evil characters. However, for the most part, this gets a thumbs up from me. Now, the third worst change is what they've done with Zelda, both the character and the series. They've changed her back into a blonde-haired, pink-dressed princess, as if we didn't already have one of those. Now, I understand that a lot of people prefer this version of Zelda over the Twilight Princess version, but hear me out for a second. 99% of their animations are the same, and they already have all of the relevant assets. It would take almost no man-hours at all to include Twilight Princess Zelda as an alternate costume. Heck, why even stop there? You can have an alternate outfit for Ocarina of Time Zelda, Ocarina of Time Adult Link, Twilight Princess Link, and Twilight Princess Ganondorf. The last one could be especially cool if he uses the Sword of the Six Sages for his smash attacks. You mean to tell me that they could have 2 different voice sets for Ike, but they couldn't do this for the Zelda characters? How can they say that everyone is here if some of the characters from The Legend of Zelda are missing? Maybe they'll include them in a future update, but I wouldn't hold my breath. In the meantime, I know which alternate costume I'm using for Zelda. In Brawl, 3DS, and Wii U, the only counterplay to assist trophies was avoidance. With Ultimate, you can smack them around and knock them out, as if they were actual fighters in the game. They can even knock themselves out. Now, of course, this doesn't apply to every single assist trophy, but when it comes to the ones you can beat up, it's a change I never knew I needed until it happened. In 3DS and Wii U, Bayonetta was able to cancel her taunts by attacking. With Ultimate, the developers had a fork in the road. They could either remove this from Bayonetta, or they could give it to everyone. And they made the wrong decision. The amount of time during a taunt that you are truly vulnerable is about, what, 50 frames? Afterwards, you could just attack like nothing happened. This is absolutely outrageous. The entire point of a taunt is to sit there slack-jawed, buggy-eyed, and show off your vulnerability to your opponent while they can't do anything about it. That's pretty much all I have to say about the second worst change in Ultimate, but while I'm here I might as well add, what was the point of removing taunts in Quick Play? It was obvious people were going to start spamming substitutes such as Wario's farts. Real quick before we get to the number ones, honorable and dishonorable mentions. I've noticed that when playing random, you are a lot more likely to get the default color scheme than in previous games. 9 times out of 10 I prefer this, so that's a thumbs up from me. On the other hand, the classic progression system is a little bit iffy. Because 5.0 is the highest starting point, the first 2 or 3 rounds is basically just speedrunning to get to the higher difficulties. Plus, the game doesn't factor in the scenario's intrinsic difficulties. I was able to get to 9.8 on King K. Rool day 1, first time trying King K. Rool. This is partly because every single stage is a one-on-one. Meanwhile, with Dr. Mario, it's always 3-on-1 against you, so you'll be pulling your hair out in no time. Oh, you won with over 100% damage because you were up against 3 Robs? Don't care, have fun in 8.2, idiot. Moving on, the single best change in Ultimate is one you probably haven't given a lot of thought about, but it's been in front of you the entire time. Decimal percentages. Imagine you're on the development team and you want to make the quickest jab in the game stronger. Let's say it currently does 2% damage. In both versions of Smash 4, the least you could buff it by was 1 damage, a 50% increase. Decimals allow for much finer tuning and balancing. In the case of our jab example, we can increase the damage by 1/10 of a point. That's only a 5% increase. This finer tuning should allow for balancing without going too far in the opposite direction. And now we get to the worst change in Ultimate. They completely butchered Final Smashes. Now before Ultimate, there were a lot of repeat Final Smashes. 3 Landmasters, Mario and Dr. Mario, things like that. However, with Ultimate, they've turned it up to 11. Kirby, Donkey Kong, Little Mac, Simon, and Fox all have the same Final Smash. Attack directly in front of you, and, if you land it, beat people up. Yoshi, Wario, Ridley, and King K. Rool all have the same Final Smash. Attack in a line and play a cutscene on whoever you hit. Hey, young Link has never had a Final Smash before. Should we come up with something interesting? Nah man, try Force Slash. There are still some unique Final Smashes, Zelda and Bayonetta come to mind, however they are few and far between. What a sad state of affairs.